Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
How much stress do you think comes thinking about the future? Like jobs, money, housing, stability?
I think when I can speak for my generation, when we say financially, I think we're the most stressed. Because especially where I live in New York, like a regular house goes for like $700,000.
Uh-huh.
And the biggest part of college that I felt like let me down, and I feel like my friends and I have all talked about this. I feel like I could speak for us. I felt like college wants your tuition money, they want to give you a degree, and they want to get you the hell out of there. They don't want to tell you that, hey, it's actually going to take you 6 months to find a job with your bachelor's degree that costs you 100 grand. Like, no one wants to tell you that. So
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you made the choice to watch our show this evening and joining us for another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast with your hosts Steve Hodgson and Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Anxiety, depression, overwhelm. For millions of people, especially young people, these aren't occasional feelings. They're becoming part of everyday life. We're living in a world of constant connection, yet so many feel isolated. A world filled with information, yet overwhelmed by fear, comparison, and uncertainty. The statistics are alarming. But behind every number is a real person, a real story, a real life. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14, and 75% by age 24. 20% of U.S. adolescents reported symptoms of anxiety in the past 2 weeks. 40% of high school students report persistent sadness or hopelessness in the past year. Nearly 1 in 5 adolescents have had a major depressive episode in the past year. Between the ages of 12 to 17 years old, the stats are alarming. 20% of high school students seriously considered suicide in 2023. 9% reported attempting suicide in the past 12 months. Certain groups, including LGBTQ+ youth and those in foster care, show much higher rates of suicidal thoughts and attempts. Roughly 54% of adolescents with mental health conditions report difficulty accessing care. Of youth with depressive episodes, 40% did not receive mental health care. Drug overdose deaths among adolescents more than doubled from 2018 to 2022, with the largest increases among Hispanic and Black youth. Youth who use social media greater than 3 hours per day face higher risks of anxiety, depression, and ADHD symptoms. Most mental health conditions manifest before age 25, making early detection crucial. Suicide risk and poor outcomes are disproportionately high for LGBTQ+ youth, foster youth, and certain racial and ethnic groups. Struggling doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're responding to a world that's demanding more than ever before. Today, we're not here to diagnose, we're here to understand. To talk honestly about what's driving today's mental health crisis, why Gen Z is feeling it so deeply, and what truly helps when life feels overwhelming. Because healing starts with being seen, heard, and supported. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast, where real conversations meet real hope. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, and welcome to another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, alongside my ever-charming host and licensed psychotherapist, Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, I think we have an interesting show and a show that's going to make us feel old.
Absolutely.
Me, a lot older than you going to feel because, I'm probably the next generation up from that, because today we're going to talk about Gen Z and the anxiety they're experiencing. But we're going to get right into it. But before we begin, I want to do a quick word from our sponsor, Waypost Counseling.
There are moments in life when you look around and think, how did I get here? The stress, the heartbreak, the habits you never meant to build, sometimes it all piles up until you don't even know where to start. But you don't have to find your way alone. At Waypost Counseling, you'll find people who genuinely listen. People who walk with you, not ahead of you. Founded by Dr. Eric L. Davis and therapist Erin Davis, Waypost was created for anyone who needs a safe place to breathe again. They offer support for individuals, couples, addiction, and those painful life transitions that shake your foundation. And now, with Jeff Gassior, a problem gambling peer support specialist, clients can connect with someone who's been there. Someone who understands the fight and the hope that comes after it. And maybe the hardest part isn't admitting you need help, it's figuring out how to start. That's why Waypost makes counselling accessible from anywhere. Whether you're sitting at your kitchen table, on your couch after a long day, or in a quiet corner where you finally feel safe, you can meet with a therapist face-to-face through secure online sessions. You don't have to fight traffic, rearrange your entire schedule, or force yourself into a waiting room when you're already overwhelmed. Help can meet you right where you are. There's something powerful about being able to speak your truth from the comfort of your own space. With Waypost's online counselling, distance is never a barrier. Whether you live across Indiana or on the other side of the country, you can connect with Dr. Davis, Erin, or Jeff in a private, compassionate, judgment-free environment. For many people, that first step feels less intimidating when it happens at home, and sometimes that makes all the difference. If you're tired, if you're hurting, if you're ready for change, reach out. Visit waypostcounseling.com or call 317-762-0904 or 317-659-0179. Waypost Counseling. When life feels heavy, let someone help you carry it. Make the call today.
Well, we're all living in a time where anxiety feels constant, depression feels heavier, and for many people, especially young people, depression never seems to let up. Scroll any news feed and you'll see it. Violence, climate, fear, economic uncertainty, social media telling us who we should be and quietly convincing us we're not enough. The youth is also fighting a scary narrative of what belief is right and wrong, and seeing a scary reality of violence when you disagree with the narrative. The numbers, they tell a sobering story. Anxiety and depression are rising across every age group. Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death among teens and young adults. Substance abuse is climbing, and more people than ever are asking for help. But you know what? They can't always find it. I really hate to do this, but let me give you a few stats. 20% of U.S. adolescents report symptoms of anxiety within the past 2 weeks. Think about that. 18% reported symptoms of depression in the past 2 weeks. 40% of high school students reported persistent sadness or hopelessness in the last year. And nearly 1 in 5, that's close to 18%, of adolescents have had a major depressive episode in the past year. What we're seeing isn't just stress, it's chronic overwhelm. And when that becomes the norm, it takes a toll on the mind, the body, and sense of hope. Now, tonight, we're not here to sensationalize a crisis. And we're definitely not here with a trendy topic. We're trying to help people, including ourselves, understand it. We're going to talk honestly about what's driving today's mental health struggles, why Gen Z is feeling that weight so deeply, and what actually helps. Not quick fixes, not buzzwords, but real support and real connection. Because struggling doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human, living in a complicated world. And tonight we're talking about mental health realities. We can no longer just ignore it, and the hope we have still exists to be able to rebuild it. Now, Dr. Davis, I gave a few stats open there. So many more in the opening film about suicide, access to care, substance abuse, risky behavior, and sadly, even overdosing. Now, we hear a lot about the youth mental health crisis. Now, from your clinical perspective, is this a true crisis or are we just finally talking about it more?
It's both. I mean, the reality is that it's both. We're finally talking about mental health more openly, and that's a good thing. But the data and what we're seeing clinically tells us that it's also a real crisis. So the anxiety rates, et cetera, are going up. So it's both.
What made me start to, look into this show was one of the most highly trending topics for mental health was Gen Z and anxiety.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, what do they have anxiety about? And that's just from my generation. We're the ones right now that are dealing with the world and every craziness in the world, but we seem to forget that they're watching all of this
Mhm.
and realizing, hey, wait a minute, you all thought you're going to pass away in a couple of years, and we still got 40, 50, 60 years left of our life,
Yeah.
and what are you doing to us? And our interviewee today, I think she very much hits that point on the head, a little hard sometimes too, but I think we all need to hear that. And even like you said, we need to be talking more about mental health.
Yeah.
So anxiety and depression, it's everywhere right now, especially among Gen Z. What's different about what you're seeing today compared to, let's say, like 15 years ago?
I think the biggest difference is exposure without relief. Young people today are constantly exposed to comparison, crisis, conflict, and through social media and news, and they're connected to things 24/7, which in the past we weren't. We typically refer to that as the good old days, right?
Mhm.
Um, so 10 or 15 years ago, stress still existed, but there were clearer boundaries. So now there's no real off switch, and that keeps the nervous system in a chronic state of alert.
I always said when we used to watch about the war in Vietnam, we used to read the stories about the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Now they got a reporter in there filming right at the place where they're bombing and everything. It's completely different stress level. I know that would have stressed the hell out of me. And
Yeah.
knowing that I was up for draft in a few years, that really would have bothered me. So at what point does everyday stress turn into something clinically concerning for teens and young adults?
I think the good rule of thumb is when it starts to interfere with functioning. Everybody deals with certain levels of stress, but when it starts impairing a person's ability to function, that's when we need to do something about it. And if a young person can't sleep or concentrate or enjoy things that they used to, like school, there's no longer just stress. Another red flag is when avoidance becomes the main coping strategy. So when, kids isolate and when life keeps shrinking, it's time to pay attention.
And not everybody likes school. So it has to be a
Yeah.
combination of a few things. I mean, I hated school when I went to it, but, you know, like you're saying, if they, they're starting to isolate and, they're trying to avoid topics and stuff, there's something else going on
Yeah.
at that point. So, what are the common struggles that you're seeing right now with young people? We read about anxiety, depression. Heck, there's so much this generation about ADHD,
Mhm.
trauma, or
Yeah.
God, it's almost everything. We saw bed rotting a few
Yeah.
episodes back.
So
No,
in answer to that question, I would say anxiety's at the very top of the list. Definitely see anxiety, especially with social anxiety, performance anxiety. Depression often follows, especially if the anxiety is not treated. Um, and I'm also seeing a lot of trauma-related symptoms. Um, like with attention difficulties, emotional dysregulation. Um, I think that a lot of young people feel unsettled, unsure, and disconnected. You know?
when I had interviewed Heather, she actually talked a lot about my next question. Because I don't think we understand how young people are feeling overwhelmed by stuff
Yeah.
they really can't control. We were just talking about this before we started, climate change, violence, political unrest. Heck, we just took, in recent days when we're recording here, we took the president of Venezuela out,
Uh-huh.
went into
Yeah.
his country and took him out. So, I mean, we understand a lot. Well, we try to understand a lot of it. I think our brains are more developed to understand
Yeah.
it. But, how does that chronic stress show up emotionally for these kids?
It often shows up as like, hopelessness, irritability, just being irritable. When stress feels endless and unsolvable, the brain can shift into a kind of like emotional shutdown. And young people may say, "What's the point?" Or "Nothing I do matters." That's not laziness or apathy. It's the nervous system being overloaded.
And a lot of them rebel at that
Yeah.
point. It's like, well, what the heck, Yeah, I can't control anything. Let's just do what
Mhm.
I want, And I mean, there was something in the paper recently about a bunch of kids that were just doing something because they just felt like doing it, even though it
Yeah.
was illegal. What difference does it make?
Mhm.
I've got a slap on the wrist, and that's going to be it. You know, we're seeing increases in ADHD and eating disorder diagnosis. I said that almost right, but diagnoses, okay? Do you believe this reflects better awareness, overdiagnosis, or a real increase in distress?
Well, it's a combination. Awareness is absolutely improved, which helps people get support sooner. But we're also seeing real increases in distress that can look like ADHD, eating disorders. Um, the key's careful assessment. A diagnosis should explain the suffering, not just label behavior.
Right. And what the big thing I'm always afraid of, and we've talked about it on this show a number of times, suicide. And suicide is one of the leading causes of death amongst young people. There's got to be warning signs that parents, teachers, and friends miss all the time. What
Yeah.
what are some of those warning signs?
Definitely, a lot of times the warning signs are very subtle, and that's something that's important to be aware of is a lot of times when we're looking at risk, we're looking for like dramatic signs, or things that are way over the top. But we would look for things like withdrawal, increased irritability, giving away possessions, uh, sleep changes, or even just things, saying things such as I'm just tired of everything, I don't want to be here anymore, etc.
And we talked about this communication on so many episodes. We need to not talk at, but talk with our teens. Because if we talked with our teens, we'd hear those sayings. If
Yeah.
we're talking at them, we're shut off to what they're saying completely, and we're just yelling at them. So today we're reading so much about substance abuse, overdoses among teens. It's increasing all over the place. We've actually discussed some of that sometimes. So what about anxiety and depression? Does it sit underneath that behavior?
Sometimes, I would even say often. It does often, not always, but frequently substance use can be used as a coping strategy, a very, unhealthy one. And it's not a rebellion. It's a person trying to cope. So many young people are trying to quiet their anxiety, numb the pain, and have some sense of relief or control. Um, when we treat the substance without addressing the emotional drivers underneath, we miss the real problem. So um, I think that substance use has a lot to do with it.
I think a lot of times we just think, oh, he's just hanging out with a bunch of friends and doing drugs.
Yeah.
That's just easy, or drinking. So or his pals do it. But they all may probably have that underlying anxiety and stuff. And as untrained adults, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to include therapists, but untrained adults, we're not looking at what's causing the child to go and do that. We're looking more at, the snorting coke every night,
Yeah.
or smoking weed instead of why are they snorting coke and why are they doing weed? It's scary when we start to examine it more than react to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem is we react really quick. So when someone uses that substance abuse to cope, okay, what does that tell you about what they're really trying to escape or even to numb?
Typically that they're, overwhelmed, emotionally dysregulated, or feeling unsafe. Um, a lot of times there's a lot of self-criticism, or self-stigma that a lot of people experience. And from a clinical standpoint, substance use is very much less about like bad choices and more about unmet emotional needs, you know?
You know, I asked Heather this question, but I'm going to put these two questions together. Mental health care. Okay. You know, there's still a stigma amongst teens and young adults about going for mental health, as well as it is for older adults too. Uh, and they're overwhelmed, but they really either number one don't know where to turn, or number two don't want to get caught, going to
Yeah.
seek help. Uh, what's the simplest first step you would recommend to someone who is overwhelmed by everything, but really needs to get help?
I mean, I think my best advice would be reach out for help immediately. There is nothing that is so important that it should take precedence over your own well-being. So that would be my advice. Would just do it. Just reach out for help. Worst case scenario, you go speak to somebody and you're like, oh, that didn't help, but at least then you know.
That's just look at the name of the show. Your life matters.
Absolutely.
That's what every one of our episodes are about, is your life matters. So don't care what anybody else says. Go seek help when you need help.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you for being with us here tonight. I know you did not expect to be called to be on a podcast, but we wanted to have somebody on who can enlighten our audience and maybe shed some light on what Gen Zers are actually feeling these days. So before we dive into the questions I have, can you tell us just a little something about yourself?
Yeah, so I am 25 years old. I'm from Long Island. I'm currently a teacher in Queens, where I teach 11th and 12th grade students social studies subjects like government and U.S. history. And is that really like all
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah.
So you're teaching seniors in high school?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm amazed at that because you're probably not that much older than some of the students.
Yeah,
That are
when I
seniors.
started, I was 22. So having like that 4-year gap was kind of
Yeah.
crazy. I'm kind of trying to mask that like age gap was probably the hardest thing about it because like you do feel so close to them in age. But the older you get, the more like you separate that and the more you're able to like come into like your craft and like realize like these are like really your clientele, not really like, and yes, you want to get to know them, but like the goal, you develop your professionalism and your boundaries like as you progress as a teacher, and it's really awesome because you feel more confident in yourself and your
And it's
ability.
got to even help being a little closer in age to understanding what the students are doing and going through,
Right.
because you just went through that.
Right. Right. And it's actually crazy because I graduated high school in 2018 and seeing that how much has changed in education since I've graduated is actually insane. Like I remember I student taught, it was like a little bit after COVID, like fall 2021. And just seeing how much has changed, like how you use laptops for every assignment, or and some schools have one-to-one, devices with students and some don't. Like I work in a school that doesn't do that. And so like it's interesting to see how I like education because it's like a reflection of like society at the moment. Like you kind of know what's going on in the world by just showing up to work that day.
Mhm.
Which is something that I really love about it. So, which I didn't
Well,
expect about it, but I do. You know.
you're going to be able to give us a unique perspective because not only as a Gen Z yourself, but
Mhm.
you're around even younger Gen Zers too
Right.
that are
Right.
going on. So, yeah, I could just tell you we had a close friend of ours when I lived in Indiana who was a teacher for 40 years, elementary school teacher.
Mhm.
And a few years ago, he actually just out of the blue retired because all the kids had to use laptops and iPads
Yep.
for school. There was no more books. They really weren't learning how to write anymore.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know. I understand the books being on that. It saves a lot of money,
Yeah.
because every year stuff changes, but not for everything. Okay, I just think that's
Well, yeah, I think that's like one of the benefits of the school I work at right now. We get to pick and choose when they use technology.
Mhm.
And with that comes a lot of like handwritten stuff, pen to paper, stuff like that. I think the downfall of that is that my kids are going to be behind when they graduate because their peers are probably a lot more tech savvy, and that's kind of where the world is going. So to me it's give or take because like yes you want them to learn the old fashioned way because that is important to have those foundational skills, but the other part of it is like okay, but just because your school's doing that doesn't mean anyone else is. So what is that going to look like for them? So
right.
that was the part that I struggle with. If I do end up, because I'm in the city right now, I have a pretty big commute, so if I end up going to a different school or like advancing my career, um it's going to be interesting to see like that transition for me personally.
So it must be fun taking Long Island Railroad every
No,
day.
I drive in. I
Oh,
drive
you
in.
drive in. Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
I
yeah.
was gonna say
No, it'd
that's
be
a
like
fun.
2 hours if I took the train. Like I was like, absolutely not. I'd rather just drive.
When I lived in
Thankfully, the
Connecticut,
part of I work is very drivable, so
Mhm.
I'm very grateful for that.
When I lived in Connecticut, I worked in Manhattan and had to
Mm.
take
Oh,
Metro North all the way in every morning, and that was not something you want to do on a daily
yeah, it's
basis.
tough. Yeah.
So, okay, so with to our audience today, as I said, we're going to be asking questions based on Gen Z.
Mhm.
So, what do you think Gen Z sees the world looking like right now?
It's hard because like for me, I'm very interested in like the like world that we're living in right now. I love sociology, I love psychology, I love all the social sciences. Um, but I've noticed a lot of kids just either they're really into it or they're just like so blatantly like ignoring it. Like some kids like will ask me questions about like, oh, did you see this in the news? I'm like, oh my God, you watch the news. Like that's great.
Hmm.
Or at least they have some kind of app on their phone or they're getting their news some way somehow, whether it be on social media or whatever. Um, so that makes me happy because you're being aware of what's going on. But and then there's some kids that just have no idea, and I think that just speaks to the technology that we see today with like your like what I guess the buzzword is like an echo chamber. Like your phone just feeds you what you want to see. It doesn't give you like everything. And so like if you are not interested in politics, like you will be so like cut off from that world. Whereas for me, like I actually had to delete TikTok because I felt like my algorithm was getting like so dark and scary that I felt like this is giving me new levels of anxiety like I didn't know could even exist. And like so for that, like I feel like it really does depend on it depends on the kid and it depends on what their algorithm looks like, point blank.
Yeah,
So
and there's no question about that the algorithms control what we think because that's
yeah,
all it puts in our face. I mean, even myself, if I go onto Facebook or TikTok or something, I mean, it's giving me what I looked at,
right,
and
right,
people haven't, and you'd be surprised how many people have not realized that,
right.
that you're seeing what they want, even with YouTube. And I'm sorry, YouTube, okay, you do host this, but I even find on my TV, if I'm watching like Xiaomi or certain videos or something like that, they show up all the time now.
Yep. So I think a big part of it is like your level of engagement with it. And so like I found that my algorithm was becoming so like engrossly dark and like couldn't really and just like stuff of like AI is going to take your teaching job. Like that was like something that came up on my For You page. And I'm like, I don't need to see this every day. I love my job. Like I don't need to see that. And then I have to go to work the next day and like pretend everything's fine. So it's like I felt like I either have to find a way to like change my algorithm or have to delete the app. And so I deleted it because I was like, and I've haven't had it for like 3 or 4 months, and I've noticed like my anxiety levels about all that stuff is like way lower. My Instagram reels like can get like towards like that algorithm, but like not really because I don't really go on it as much. Um, but I've just noticed that like that's kind of where that's going. So
See, and this show started because this episode, I should say, started because the number one trending thing was Gen Z and anxiety. And I think you just hit the nail on the head as to why there's so much anxiety. You start to even search like a conspiracy theory and you get flooded with that. Somebody watches, let's say, like Joe Rogan or something like that,
Right.
and watches even on Charlie Kirk or something. Now all of a sudden, it's like every single video that you look at is
Right.
something about that, and it's kind of scary. So, what
Yeah.
do you think? Okay, go on,
Oh,
what were
no,
you
no,
gonna
you're
say?
good. You can go. Yeah.
Okay, now I was just saying, what do you think our generation, this older generation, doesn't fully understand about Gen Z and why they're getting stressed?
So I actually read a book on this, and it's called The Coddling of the American Mind, and by Jonathan Haidt and I think one more guy, I think Greg Wolkin or something. But basically it's about like why our world looks the way it does today. And a big part of that, and I feel like a lot of reasons why Gen Z are so anxious, the whole study was basically like the less you coddle your child, the more independent, less anxious, like less depressed they will be. And I feel like from what my parents' perspective, so my parents are both Gen X, and from my perspective, like in comparison to their childhood versus mine, my parents were a lot more involved in my life. My dad was my soccer coach. They came to every game. They helped me to apply to college. They helped me more than just fed me and put a roof over my head. So I feel like because of that, although I had a really great childhood, I feel like there's a lot of things that like I don't know how to do that my parents knew how to do at an early age because of that level of help that they've given to me. And I feel like I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like most of my friends, if not all of them, got the same type of parenting style. So I think with that between oh, it's not even really arguably like overly coddled. I feel like I wasn't overly coddled, but I feel like I know a lot of people that were as a child, and I feel like because of that, they don't know how to do as much. Number one, so they get anxious when they have to do anything difficult that requires independence, knowledge, struggling, like all of that stuff. Like they just haven't really experienced as much as Gen X, so it's kind of difficult for us to process to get through. On top of the fact that the entire world is at your fingertips and you're seeing what everyone else is doing and you're like, why am I not doing that? Why don't I have this product? Why don't I have this job? Why don't I live in a $5,000 apartment in Manhattan? Like all of these things I think are compiling that makes it kind of difficult to handle. So
See, I remember recently some influencer
mhm.
who I was eating in all these fancy restaurants and had all these fancy clothes, and they weren't paying for the stuff, and they were just
No.
recently arrested. I don't know if you remember, if you've seen that in the paper a couple of months ago, and but to a lot of the people that are watching today, these influencers, they think, wow, I want to do that. Okay,
Mhm.
I want that, I want that, and don't realize that, I guess like our generation said, yeah, well, we had to work for what we got.
Right. Right.
Nothing was handed to us before. So I think a lot of times that we don't see, my generation doesn't see what you guys are struggling with.
Right.
And, everybody wants to give their child what they didn't have growing up.
Right.
And I think we passed that point where we were supposed to stop. And we just
I
keep giving more
agree.
and
Like, and
more.
especially like I have cousins that, I have like I know like a couple of younger kids and like with millennial parents, and like I just feel like I don't know. I can't speak for them. I'm not in their house. I don't know what goes on a day-to-day basis, but like I
Mhm.
do know that I do have actually, well, where I work, a lot of their parents are millennials. And it just seems like, they're not told to go get a job. They're not really told to go start living their life. Like I have kids that, I'm in a pretty low socioeconomic area. Like none of them have jobs. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a job? My parents stopped giving me money at 16. Like I had to go get a job. So it's like I think about that stuff where it's like they just don't want us to struggle at all. And like the reality is that your struggles actually make you a stronger, more competent person. And no one wants to do that with their kid. I mean, listen, I'm not a parent. I can't speak for that. So it's like I don't know what that's like, but I think that like that's what we're missing at this point is letting your kid just like try to fly on their own. And if they struggle, if they fall, they're gonna pick themselves back up because they have to. So
And the parents should be always there in the long run to back
right.
them up. But you have, my parents were one at 15. I was working already in a cheese store, an
Right.
Italian cheese store, right after school every day,
Right.
and that's what you did. You worked and you built that work ethic. And I think a lot of, and I'm not picking on youth. I just think in general, today people do not have a work ethic anymore.
Yeah.
Just go into a store and ask, can I get an extra package of ketchup or something?
Yeah.
And just look at like, you want me to go over there and bend down and pick you back? Yeah,
Right.
that is what you're getting paid for. Yeah.
Well, I also think a part of it too is that technology has made everything so easy, and there is no like processing things anymore. Like it's kind of just
hmm
done for us. And I think that's also hard when you are underdeveloped, like your brain is not fully developed yet. So it's like now this has become a custom and this has become normal for you. So I think that's also part of it. Um, and they don't know any other way. And like that, like to me, like I felt like I had a pretty like on technology-ish childhood. Like I probably wasn't really on social media until I was maybe like in middle school. So like all of elementary school was pretty non-technology based. Which people are like, yeah, that doesn't count. But like I really do think it counts because like those are your chronic like development years in your brain. Um, because I feel like not to my own horror, but I look at my some of my students, I'm like, how do you not know how to like copy and paste something like on a computer? Like that's like basic knowledge. Like I'm like I had to explain to somebody how to copy and paste something. And they were in the 12th grade. So it's like why I think it's just everything just become just so accessible and easy and like they don't have to think about how to have things work. So I think like that's also part of it too. So
You got to look back when this year, actually in June, is my 50th anniversary of graduating high school. So there was no computers or anything like that back
right.
then when I was in school. But okay, so I want to ask you a question. And you don't have to answer as a personal view, but
Mhm.
what do you think about the world right now? Now, I'm talking about like news, social media, politics, violence, climate, finances. What feels the heaviest to you and to the Gen Z generation?
I don't want to speak for my entire generation because I don't really truly know. And also because I feel like everyone's on different pages, especially because it's going back to the whole echo chamber thing. But I think what's weighing on me personally is climate change. Because I feel like I get panicked when like it's a little too warm in October. Like I'm like, why is it 80 degrees in October in New York? Like that's a problem. And I only worry about that because like that's our future that's being impacted. Like
hmm
it's easy for like the people in charge today to be like, oh, just drill oil in Alaska. Like I'll be dead in 20 years. Like it doesn't matter. But like for us, like that's I'll be in like peak adulthood. Like I'll be like 45. Like to me, like that's concerning because it's like what world are we inheriting? Because there's people in charge that really part which don't give a shit what happens to the planet because they're gonna make every last dollar they want to make before they go out.
Profit. Yep.
So to me, that's what's the most concerning. I also think the level of AI and where that's going is concerning to me. I am hoping that there are policies that we put in place. In my opinion, I feel like a child should not have access to AI until they graduate college. Like it shouldn't be in universities. It shouldn't be in any school possible. I think it's ruining foundational skills. It's ruining critical thinking. I won't lie, I use it often, but it's because I know how to make a Excel chart. I'm like, hey, just make this so it looks like this, right? Like and it saves me 5 minutes. I work a very busy job as a teacher. But I think like for a kid that doesn't know how to write a 3 body paragraph essay and just wants to and just doesn't feel like learning it and goes on AI, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So I don't know. It's a big debate, but I think there needs to be some kind of regulation for it. I think there will be because also it's also destroying the planet. Like that's also part, and that's the part that no one wants to talk about. Is that every time you use ChatGPT, like a gallon of water is some statistic I read online, like a gallon of water is used, and yeah, and then I feel like a hypocrite because like I do use it sometimes, but I'm not, but I know that like I'm not like over reliant on it, and that's where I stand. I'm also like, well, this is gonna be the future anyway. We're gonna have to get some kind of handle on it. So like, what is me not using it gonna really do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So
Right.
it's difficult because it is the future and it is we do have to face it, but it is very scary. To me
The
personally, it's
amount the amount of power that it takes to run those AI computers
yeah,
is, to me, is, in my generation here, it's so scary because I mean literally they use almost as much power as half New York City
right,
uses to run one bank of computers.
right,
So, and you're right about the thinking. I don't think, I use, AI for this show as far as, some ideas and
right,
stuff and bouncing off some ideas. But again, I mean, I just use it as like an outline, some just ideas, and it just saves me the time of research. Like a lot of times, like you'll even see in this show when it starts, there's some stats. Okay, I don't have to look up those stats.
right,
It searches and finds me the stats.
right.
But I don't always agree with everything that AI says.
And a
And
lot
I
of times
definitely
it's
don't go with
wrong.
everything it says. Yeah, well,
Right,
it is wrong. Yeah, because if you have 7 sites out there that are throwing BS stuff on the web, it picks up those 7 sites and
right,
maybe one other and says, well, 7 out of 8 says this, so it's got to be correct.
right,
So
right.
yeah, it's a scary thing. And plus, is it going to take over? Is it going to do away with jobs and
Right.
stuff?
Well, right. And like that's what I was seeing on my Instagram and I'm like on my TikTok page. I'm like, you know what? Like I don't and so I think the way I've coped with that is that like I just want to like be present and like not think and you do have to think about your future, but I think like overly analyzing it and snowballing, it's like not the answer. And so I feel like the way I cope with it is I just kind of remain present and say, you have a job now. It's not going away anytime soon. So just do the best you can with what you have. And like, that's it. I mean, I really don't have like, that's the way I've been looking at it the last year. So,
I even said 1 or 2 episodes back, I said to Dr. Davis, you realize that AI can now do its own podcast. They don't even need
yeah.
us anymore. They can clone us and do the show itself, and it's not
Yeah.
even us anymore.
So
What?
it's funny. I was listening to I have a podcast I listen to every week, and they like as a bit like tried to like be like, hey, like we have this podcast like based on our style of like it's like a comedy podcast, like based on the style of it, like make a script for us to use, and it was so bad, like it was so terrible that it actually made me feel better. And they're like, see, you can't replicate like human humor and human authenticity. So
You know, it's got its good and it's got its bad.
yeah,
My question is, at one point, does it not tell us things that we should know?
right. That's the
And
part
there's
where
been
I get
tests on
scared. Yeah.
that. They've tested AI on that, where they said if you can't answer, if you've been programmed to answer differently, just say like black, the word black. And they've asked some hefty questions and how many times it answered black, which means that it's been programmed to deceive.
Right. Right.
And that's a kind of scary thing. I mean, for even my generation, and
Right.
I'm more, I still hopefully, knock on wood here, I got about another 20, 25 years left here to live too.
Yeah.
So I care about what happens 20, 25 years from now.
Yeah.
Plus, I got children and grandchildren. So
Right.
I care about the future. But you hit the nail on the head before when you said about profit.
Yeah.
For too
That's what
many
it's for.
years, it's been
That's
profit.
the
Yeah.
only reason, and that's the only reason they're calling it false or saying it's not real. Like
Hmm.
the state of Washington is like melting. California hasn't had rain in months. Like that's not a coincidence. And like I don't know. And I think like social media has manipulated our information now that people just choose what they want to believe. Like there's no like truth anymore. And that is the part that frustrates me the most because like it's shielding people from what they really need to see and understand, you know.
So let's look at stress
Mhm.
for Gen Z. Do you think it's more intense today for that generation, or is it just really the same that every other generation has experienced? Now, obviously, you haven't experienced what other generations have, but your perception of
Stress
it.
meaning what?
Stress meaning the anxiety that you're feeling with the way politics are taking place, like you mentioned, climate control. Okay, the AI, and
Right.
they're a different set of challenges than, I laugh because what we had to deal with stress was our hair was too long. Well, but our hair was too long. Oh, we listened to that devil rock music, when I
Right.
was growing up, Led Zeppelin, what's wrong with you? Okay.
Right.
Do you think that the problems today are worse than what other generations had to experience?
I don't know because I feel like people now, I mean, I can't speak like for me, like my big stressors are like, you know, my two big things are like advancing my career, making sure I'm getting better at my job, and and to be honest, the state of the world, like that to me is the biggest stressor for me. And I feel like from what my parents tell me, my parents are 58 and 55. And they were like, we never paid attention to what was going on in the news. Like that was never really a concern. And they're like, I don't even know who was president when I was like 21. Like, I like couldn't tell you. Like, and so for me, like I feel like but also they had no like full blown access to it. Like like you
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like that's also part of it. So it depends because there might have been someone back in 1990 or 1988 that have like watched the news and was like really stressed about it and they might have a different experience. But I feel like, if I talk to a couple of Gen X's that I do know, they're gonna say the same thing. So I don't know. I think also it's hard to compare because like when you were living during that time, like the boomers thought like, oh my God, this generation is doomed. Like they don't pay attention to anything. There's like all they want to do is like drink and party. Like so at least that's what my parents told me. My parents were like, this generation's doomed. Like they don't want to do anything. They're lazy. They have no work ethic. Like so like I think it's just is it just history like repeating itself? Is it just humanity not changing and just looks different in different versions, or is it actually different? Like that's what I don't know. So
It makes you wonder, and this would have been a perfect time for me to talk to Dr. Davis right here and say, what do you think, Eric, about this? Um, is it maybe because of the way technology has changed
yeah,
that we're seeing, I think you hit the nail on the head. Back in my day when the Vietnam War and everything was going on, I mean, I remember turning like 17, 18, worried about being drafted.
yeah,
But again, we heard about the war going on. Whereas today we have a reporter in the middle filming what's going on in the war.
right,
So it's a completely different time. Whereas we read about the war going on, now we're actually seeing it,
right.
and it stresses us out a little more. Um, I don't know. I just think that all this knowledge, whereas it's good and we're able to communicate with, I have relatives over in the UK. I can talk to them, but I think it's gone too far where everything is being thrown at us all at once.
It's actually, I read something where it was like, it's actually not normal for your brain to consume that
That
much
much, yeah.
information at once. And which I think is interesting because like but if you think about it, evolutionary wise, like it makes sense. Like we've lived majority of our time as human beings without technology, and now we're like adapting to that. And so like it's interesting to see like how it affects our brains in different ways. And I think it's just very new and we've never had to face it before. And so I think that's also a part of the issue. So
I don't think we're adapting. I think it's being forced on us a
yeah.
little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we really have too much of a choice. Um, we just talked about, pressure of everything at once. How do you prioritize what you care about? Told you this is a mental health show. Okay.
Oh yeah. How do I prioritize? It really depends. I think for me, like my 20s, like my theme of my 20s so far has been like getting to the place where I want to be professionally. And other things. Like I wanted to like see the world. I got to do that a little bit the past 2 years with the salary I have now with being a teacher. I've got to, meet different people and stuff like that. So I am trying to enjoy like this part of like young adulthood. And I think like that's where my priorities lie the most. And obviously like my network, my family, my boyfriend, my sister, my whatever, my friends. Um So I think like it's a balance of like being in the moment and enjoying your life while also, being aware of what's going on, but not trying to get so sucked into like the vortex because it's so easy to get like that. That was my biggest thing of 2025 was like finding a way to like not get to that point. Um, and it was a big theme for me. And I feel like I finally like got a hold on it, deleting TikTok. My student actually recommended me this app. It's called Straight Arrow News. And it shows you the story and it gives you like a summary of it, why it matters. And then it shows you the media landscape of it. So what that means is like, did the center cover it the most? Did the right cover it the most? Did the left cover it at all? Did the left cover it the most? Like, and to me, like that gives me a sense of like, here's what's actually going on. Because what my feed is like, for as a young female, living in New York, like it's showing me like all these like, emotional things and it's trying to make me upset. And like the point is to make me keep watching. So it's like that's really the whole point. Like they don't care if I actually like side with this political party. It's really just like we want you to keep watching because this is what you can't stop looking at. So I've tried to find that balance of like making sure that you're informed while also just living your life because no matter what happens in the world, you still gotta go to work tomorrow. So like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, so that's how I've been prioritizing my life. So
That's a good way of looking at it. Now, do you think that you're a much more focused individual, okay, than a lot of even, family members that have it? I'm not talking about your friends there, okay? But I'm talking about just people I see around me, even like immediate family and stuff that I don't see them being. I mean, I've tried to stress to them, let's put it this way, my age and experience knowing that you're going through the most important years of your life.
yeah,
Because what you do during your 20s and 30s actually sets up what's going to happen from your 40s on,
right,
okay, financially. Because, I'm sorry, this is still a world of money. And if you don't have your feet planted firmly on the ground, you're in
right,
trouble. Later
right,
on, you'll never catch up. The system is rigged that you'll never catch up.
right.
So you're doing things the right way. But what about those that don't even want to take a job? And they're living off of mommy and daddy's money and
Mhm.
mommy and daddy's help. What's going
Right.
to happen to them?
I feel like those people, well, I hate to say it, like it's equally their responsibility to find a job as well as the parent to be like, you either get
Mhm.
a job or you get out of my house. Like that's equally responsible. And I feel like no one wants to say that. And I feel like everyone's like, well, they need to go like figure out themselves. Like, no, the parent also needs to push them because there's a reason why they're still there is because the parent has never said, hey, get up off your ass and go get a job. Like that's part of it. So I think it has to do with a little more tougher parenting, a little more tough love, if you will, and in that person trying to find that motivation. I mean, I don't know. I know a couple people that are like that. I personally don't know what the solution is to that. Um, but I just know that with the factors surrounding them, I feel like that parent needs to just push them. And I mean, listen, they got to go do it, but like the other 50% is who they live with and who they're in their living situation. So
It's called tough love. The
yeah,
parents have to adapt
1000%.
to tough love. Yep. Um, what about social media? I keep going back to, but it's so prevalent today. You know, do you feel that there's a pressure to appear okay or successful online, even when you're not feeling that great inside?
1000%. Um, we always say like, I forget where I read this or saw this, but social media is what I call a highlight reel. So it's like your highlights of your life. Like, oh yeah, like I went on this really awesome vacation. Yeah, I fought with my mom the entire time, but look how awesome this boat is, right? And I feel like that is 100%. I feel like when I was a teenager, it was more intense. Because it's when social media was new and like you got to see how many likes you have on your picture and um are you like becoming like Instagram famous? Like that was big when I was like 13 or 14. It's kind of dwindled down now. I mean, the focus is more TikTok, but I remember when I first got social media, Instagram was huge. And if you didn't have like a certain amount of like likes on a photo, like you would take it down. And I feel like that doesn't really exist anymore. You can get rid of your like count and like you can just like have it up there to have it. And you don't and people don't see how many people liked your picture. I thought that was great actually. I thought that was an awesome move. Um on Instagram's part. TikTok, I feel like is becoming the new Instagram. And so I feel like yes, it's definitely a matter of keeping up, but like I don't know. I feel like it used to be more intense. I feel like that's kind of dwindled down, but now it's more of a matter of like who's becoming like famous on TikTok and like who's getting the opportunities to go do this and like and going on free trips to promote this brand. Like that's becoming more of what it is. But yeah, so
Influences, they almost control so much. They
yeah,
can make or break a show. I mean, if I were to pay an influencer to push this show, I mean, we'd fly off the charts.
yeah,
But I don't want somebody doing it for phony reasons. We want
right.
people to. One of the things that Dr. Davis and I always say, why when we ask why we did this, if we help just one person each episode, that's all
Yeah,
we care about.
yeah.
We don't monetize this. We could. We don't monetize the show.
Mhm.
I don't want money for it because I don't want people saying we're doing this for
Right.
something else. And I don't even, well, I shouldn't even say, but I don't even use TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't like the trends. People doing stupid things, and everybody, like we did an episode on bed rotting. I had absolutely no clue what the word bed rotting meant. I thought that was somebody an old bed they slept on,
Right,
and
right, right.
and had to do a bunch of research on bed rotting. But again, it's someone say, hey, you know what? Let's just stay in bed all day or a day or two and just do nothing,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's great. I've done that every once in a while. I didn't
Yeah.
know it had a name, but 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 you got out and you dealt with life. That's like taking a vacation.
Right.
I used to call it a cheap vacation. I just stayed home and did nothing
Right.
for a day or
Right.
two. But when you have people running alongside of vehicles and you know doing different things with it, slapping people off the back of their heads. And so
Right.
I think we've gone a bit too far
Yeah.
with some of that stuff. And that's why I really don't want to watch any of that stuff on TikTok anymore.
Yeah.
So, how much stress do you think comes thinking about the future? Like jobs, money, housing, stability?
I think when I can speak for my generation, when we say financially, I think we're the most stressed. Because especially where I live in New York, like a regular house goes for like $700,000.
Uh-huh.
And the biggest part of college that I felt like let me down, and I feel like my friends and I have all talked about this. I feel like I could speak for us. I felt like they college wants your tuition money, they want to give you a degree, and they want to get you the hell out of there. They don't want to tell you that, hey, it's actually going to take you 6 months to find a job with your bachelor's degree that costs you 100 grand. Like no one wants to tell you that. So I remember like, and teaching's a little bit different, but like I remember my friends were majored in psychology and geography and like business, and they just like had just like these generic degrees, and they took them 6 months to find an actual job, and like no one wants to talk about that. And like I feel like for me, like you, and then you finally find a job and they're paying you $50,000 a year when you have all, if you have student loan debt, you have to deal with that. Then you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to save money, pay back these loans? I mean, you can live at home and save, but like it's only making you so much when groceries are this amount of money, right? So it's really hard to, you can do it, but it's definitely a struggle to recognize like you can save money, you just have to sacrifice a little bit. And like that's, but when you're given, when you're living in like ultimate comfort, like this is the most comfortable like life has ever been. It's hard to like process like, hey, like I actually can't have 5 subscriptions to a TV account. Like I have to have only one, right? You know what I'm saying? But like that concept to us is like, what do you mean I can't have all 5? Like I've grown up with all like, so I think it's hard financially because like it's us realizing that we're gonna have to struggle a little bit in a world where it's like ultimate comfort, easy, accessible. So not to mention like the inflation rate and the grocery prices and the housing prices and everything else. And the other part of it, I think, is that I think salaries have not caught up to the inflation rates. Like I think everything's getting more expensive, but like we're not getting paid more. Like the fact that like I'm a teacher, I'm on my third year of teaching in New York City, and like the thought of like renting an apartment by myself is scary and stupid is insane. Like that's crazy. Like the whole point of me getting a bachelor's degree is so I can have a stable income, so I can do and have more financial flexibility. And I just don't. Um, and thankfully, my boyfriend makes a lot more money than me, so we're able to start looking. But like, it's at the point where I'm like, I'm uncomfortable moving out by myself, which is insane because I make a lot more than $50,000. So
Right.
yeah,
It's it's still, and I'm someone who never adhered to that, but it's really the rich getting richer.
yeah,
And
thousand
and,
percent.
and we see that even in my generation now. It's no longer caring about people. I'm a diabetic and stuff. When I started reading and realizing that they knew all the sugar that they're putting. What was it? Somebody was showing me, I think it was Joe Rogan was talking about something the other day that had sugar in it, and he couldn't, it was some kind of water or something like that has sugar in it.
Yeah,
And it's like, really? Okay, and then they wonder why we're getting sicker, but then healthcare is getting richer. They're
yep.
charging more and more money for healthcare. And like you say, our salaries are not matching what's going on. Now, I want to change subject, go to something that I think a little more serious.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk.
Hmm.
Dr. Davis asked me to make sure that I included a question because I really didn't have him in this, but I guess it really is. You're someone who went to college and stuff already. Did you see the things that he was talking about from professors and at the university of being like indoctrinated into a different train of thought?
Meaning, like, you think, like, you're asking me, like, was he coming to campus and like talking about his
Well,
opinion?
coming to campus and talking about the stuff he was talking about, but a lot of the reasons, or at least that I've seen, don't follow it that much, but it seems like the reason he went to campuses was trying to help students see things from another point of view that professors were not teaching them.
Hmm.
Did you see that when you were going to school that,
So I
professors were,
graduated in 2022. I don't
okay,
know how long he was doing that for. I've seen like bits of him like on the internet, like nothing
hmm,
crazy. Like I like back when I had TikTok, like I feel like I saw clips of him like debating other people,
right.
um, and giving different perspectives and stuff. Um, I thought, there's some things I didn't agree on that he said. I would say that he definitely has a certain opinion on things, and like that's in order for us to be, a more united country again, I think we need to accept the fact that like he was practicing his freedom of speech. Just like any other person would feel if they talked about leftist ideals. Um, and I felt like that I don't know. Listen, to me, like he did. It seemed like to me he loved what he did because he loved to debate other people, and he loved like having that like conversation with somebody else. Yes, the views were considered, very very conservative, but I feel like he had those views. He had those views, but I think the more important thing for him was that he was like debating other people. That's what it seemed like to me. Like he gets joy out of like political debate. So that's
But not
that's
only
fine.
that too, I think, you know, there was a campaign way back, and it was called Think,
Hmm.
and that they were doing in the schools where I was in New York, in Xavier High School. And the idea was trying to make you think.
Hmm.
For 1 week they had a sign up that said think. And everybody would, what the heck? You
Yeah.
go around the school and there'd be different signs. And then the next week it said, guess it made you think. They replaced the sign. And basically what they were trying to do was to use your head and to weigh things out.
Hmm.
My view of him was that he was trying to present an alternate form of thinking. Okay. And he respected your opinion. He was
Yeah.
just trying to give you an opposite side. But then that brings me to my next question that I had. Uh, it seems like you're not allowed to talk about things today.
Hmm.
And if they don't like what you're saying, there's violence behind it.
Hmm.
Okay, and in his case, we'd say he was killed, assassinated. I don't care what the word is. He's no longer here. That's how I look at it.
Right.
What does Gen Z think about the fact that if they stand up and they say something that's not the norm that's accepted, that now it's met with violence instead of discussion?
So the way, I mean, I can speak for like the students I teach because like I've been in one school really. I mean, one or two
Hmm.
schools. Um, they kind of don't understand like because they're just so desensitized to everything. So like I feel like the trend right now is like just saying things that will like make people like angry or like have a reaction. And so like his name gets thrown around in school because like they want like this kid like he did like a whole like debate about like so I forget what the take was, but it was like, oh, I want to say this to like get people mad. Like I don't actually have this opinion, but I want to say this to get
Hmm.
people mad. And like or like say something about something that's controversial in the news. And at that point it was Charlie Kirk. Like they started talking about like him or like abortion or something like that. And I don't even remember like what side it leaned on, but I just remember like they're so obsessed with like getting like a reaction out of people. And I feel like because they just feel like they're like I don't get why it's so serious because like to them like they've been watching violence on social media since they were born. So like to them like for us it's a big deal because like we understand the complexities of like the fact that he was murdered in front of a bunch of people and it was really disturbing and sad. But I feel like for kids that have
Traumatizing.
seen that, right? But for kids that have seen that like over and over again through video games or just social media in general, like to them it's just like another thing that happened in the world, you know? So I don't know.
And that's one of my questions coming up, so I'll pass when I get to it. But do you have video games? Because they have really desensitized an
Yeah.
entire generation. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't play well, I play card games, but I'm old. Okay. But but I mean I've seen some of those, games, videos, and with this all this killing and this murdering.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've even read conspiracy wise, whatever it is, where they show a movie, they'll show like a city blowing up. And then a
Mhm.
year or two later, that city blows up, but people don't react as bad because they've already seen it in a movie.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, do you think that subliminally, I guess, yeah, that's probably the way to put it, that we're actually changing the way people react to things in the younger generation? At the older generation, I don't. You could show me, him being people being assassinated 5 times. The sixth time, it's still going to affect me the same
Mhm.
way I saw it the first time.
Right. I think it depends because I feel like for me personally, like someone that grew up around that stuff, I mean, I didn't grow up playing violent video games, but like, you
Hmm.
know, when you see something on video, for me, I feel or like in a movie or a TV show, like, yeah, this is gonna sound crazy. I feel like it's only real to them if they like see it in real life. So, for example, like there's a car crash on TV. Okay, someone got into a car crash. Like, but when you drive, let's say you're on a highway and you see someone collide and the car explodes, obviously you're gonna feel some
Hmm.
type of way about it because you're emotionally linked to it because you saw it. And it's not on TV, it's not for show. It's like those are real people in there. I think the problem is even if the person is real and is getting a violent act done towards them, it still doesn't feel that real. It's kind of like when you like love a celebrity or something and then like you see them in real life and like you freeze. You're like, "Oh my God, like I've pictured everything I want to say to this person, but I can't right now because they're literally standing right there." You know? Like I feel like it's
I
very
get that all the time. No.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like that's kind of the reality of it. Is like it doesn't feel real until it's like sitting in front of your face.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, maybe I looked into it more. I mean, the gore of him being shot is one thing. I mean, I can
Mhm.
still vision it in my head, But I looked at it more from, okay, they're trying to shut them up.
Yeah.
This was like a message. It was
Hmm.
being sent as a message, okay? If you don't like what's going on, look at what's going to happen if you say something.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping that that's not, I mean, I've seen so many protesters. Okay, I don't want to go into Antifa, but I mean, but certain protesters that are out there, and if you say something that bring that different point of view, it turns violent right away
Yeah.
instead of discussing. And I think I was just wondering how that is affecting Gen Z, because it seems like from an outsider's point of view, if they don't get what they're forced to believe, they're going to turn violent to get their point across.
So again, I feel like that adds back into the whole idea of like their truth is whatever they look at online. Like they don't
Hmm.
get exposed to other points of view. So it's very difficult to wrap your head around the fact that someone actually has a whole other set of ideas because that's not what you see on the internet. Like they're on a completely different side of the internet and like so are you. So I feel like it's easy to get angry because it's like, what do you mean you don't see my side? And they're like, how could I? I've never seen anything that you've seen like on the internet. Like it could be the same topic and two completely different videos that pose it in two completely different ways. And I feel like that strikes a nerve. Like there's that lack of understanding causes frustration, which causes, unfortunately, extreme violence. And like I but to me, like that's because like the way I've kind of understood this and have not felt emotionally involved anymore is I've read about it. And like the way, I've read about like I read this book called like The Righteous Mind and it talks about like the moral psychology that goes into politics. And a big part of it is that like the Democratic Party really only feeds into like two morals, and then the Republican Party feeds into like five. And if it just depends on what that person's like really all about. And but that also feeds in now, it's even more powerful with social media because they're showing videos to people that only want to see red videos or blue videos. So
Right. Hmm.
for me, like that understanding that makes me like less emotional and taking a step back and being like, okay, yes, there's videos on my page that make me upset, but like I know that that's what their goal is, and like I'm gonna remove myself from that. I don't know if people are reading about that and really thinking about what's actually going on. So I feel like Gen Z is just, I don't know. I've met people that are very, very left and really just like hate everybody that's not them. And I'm the same thing on the other side. People that are red and like they hate everyone that's not them. So it's like it's hard to have an answer for that because I feel like everyone is so different because everyone's in like their own little world, if that makes sense. So
If they only possibly even realize that that's the plan.
right.
Keep these people over here worrying about this, keep these people over here worrying about this, and we can do whatever we want right down the middle.
Right. We are weaker divided. And like
Right.
that's
Hmm.
something that like no one is like putting together. And
Well, they've
yeah,
they've accomplished that since I was a kid.
right.
They've pushed you either one way. I mean, when I was growing up, either Republican or Democrat.
Right.
You know, and that's really what it was. And you had complete different. And it's only the last couple of years that I think I've started to open my eyes to we're being played both sides.
Right.
You know, I
No,
mean,
thousand
really,
percent. Thousand
let's
percent.
do this. You know, Trump will come in and do A, B, C, and D. And then when the Democrats get into control, they're going to get rid of A, B, C, and D, and they're going to do, E, F, G, and H, and it's just a game that they're playing with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like you say, united we stand, divided we fall. And they divided us really well.
Yeah.
Even with race, think about even all the Black Lives Matter and stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but I think everybody's lives matter.
Yeah.
So, and when we look at it from that point of view, we stop playing the race card,
Right.
and that's what's important. Now, I want to ask a couple of really more mental health questions.
Sure.
When someone from Gen Z is struggling, what kind of support do you think actually helps, and what makes it worse?
So for me, like what helps me is like educating myself and like so I did a lot of like I remember I had a lot of anxiety leaving college because I didn't know the thought of me like moving home and starting a job and like not knowing where my life's going to take me, like that was really scary. And I read a lot of books that I also just love psychology. So I read a lot of books that were about like, what anxiety actually is and how to cope with it and stuff like that, and what's actually going on in your brain. I listened to a psychology podcast. So it's like finding your niche or your community, I think, is really important. It's so easy to do that these days. I feel like finding things that you love and like finding other people online that love the same, and it makes that level of community like makes you feel like you're not alone. And so yeah, I feel like that is the one benefit of the internet. You can, even if you have no friends in real life, you can have friends online, and that's equally as important. So
What is it that adults say that we think is, because we have all this knowledge that we think is really helpful, but really isn't?
mm,
And I'm sure you see it a lot. I mean, you've been, you teach students, you've been there, you've been to college and everything else, and you're still
right.
really in that generation. Back when like we were going, you're not married yet? Why aren't you married?
Right. Oh, yeah. So I think like for me, the biggest piece of advice is like that way that you said that doesn't really hit
Yeah,
home.
well, what works and what doesn't work that we're doing
Yeah. So I
and
would say
saying.
what doesn't work is like when people are like, well, in my day, like I had no money and I bought a house for $150,000. I'm like, okay, because it was $150,000. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, or saying how like, I don't know, like to me, I would consider myself a very hard worker. I get frustrated when I get told, oh, just to work harder, or you just didn't do enough. It's like, no, this person knew this person and they hopped over this hoop, and then that's why they got the job over me. Like that to me is like I think it's the most frustrating part about today. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if things have changed or whatever, but it seems like more and more today, jobs are just about like who you know. It's not really about like your qualifications.
It's always
And
been
so
nepotism.
right. To me, yeah. So to me, like that's frustrating because like I've been raised to work hard and it's got me to where I am today. But at the same time, like there are other things that like I would have liked to do, but I couldn't have because I didn't know a certain somebody. And like that's frustrating to me. So
How should parents, or maybe it may even be for yourself, how should parents be talking to their Gen Z teens and stuff? To find out more what's going. I mean, well, let me back that up then, okay? Do Gen Zs really want to share what's going on in their lives with their parents?
this is
Or
tough
are we
because
push as parents, are we pushing too much for that?
I think it's a matter of balance, and it also depends on like your kid and your kid's personality and your personality. Like my parents always wanted to be really involved with my sister and I.
Right.
And I think what that requires is for the parent to not be quick to judge that child. So like let's say like they really want to know what's like going on between like I don't know. Like if I was like seeing somebody like 15 or 16, right? In order for me to tell I've always felt this way. If I wanted to tell my parents something, they'd have to like accept the information and like tread lightly because like I like to me I always felt like I don't have to tell you this, but you really want to know. But I'm not telling you if you're going to judge me about it. So it's like
Right.
so like that was always my perspective as a teenager, but I feel like it's a good balance of like you need to be their parent, but you also can't like you have to be 50%, 70% parent, 30% friend. And I think that's a big part of it because when you're 70% friend, 3% parent, then you lose control of your kid. And then it becomes like there's no really guidance there. It's just like someone that's feeding you and giving you money. And but the other part of it to me is like you if you're too parenty and you like if you're too strict, they're not going to tell you anything. They're going to push you away, and there's not going to be a relationship there. It's just going to be like, hey, like I need this for this, and what are we having for dinner? Like that's really what it's going to become. So I think it's a good balance, and I think my parents did a great job of doing that. And I think a lot of my friends' parents did the same thing because like my best friend, like her, I have a really close relationship with her mom, and that's because like she has that balance of like being a parent, but also like being involved in her kid's life. And that's really, no one wants to say this, but like you kind of have to be friends with your kid. Like that's
Right.
in order for them to trust you. So
And and we talked about on the show here a few weeks ago, we talked about Thanksgiving that Dr. Davis always talks about communication is so important,
yeah,
but communicating means not judging.
right.
Because we thought, I know we mentioned this a few times, where a kid would say, I had a problem at school today, because, well, that's because you're an idiot. Okay, you should just you
Right.
have to listen. You got to stop, and you have to effectively communicate. You have to be able to listen,
Right. And
and
it's
I think that's the problem with parents today.
well, right. And like they want to be like too and listen, I don't know enough young parents personally to make this like large assumption, but if I had to, I would say there's probably I feel like as years go by, it's becoming like 50% parent, 50% friend, and then it's becoming like and then it's reaching a point where like you're not letting your kid like live their life, like you're trying to like mold them into the person you want them to be, and it's like they have to like live their own life, like because when they're an adult, like they're not going to know what to do, like it's
Hmm.
just and so I think I here's my hot take. I feel like by the time my kids, people my age are parents, I think that we're going to see like a decline in that because especially teachers now, we see like how overly involved parents are, and we're gonna be like, I'm not gonna do that to somebody else, and make sure like I'm not gonna sit there and call a teacher and tell them like you're garbage because you failed my kid. Like, what are you getting out of that? Like, and what is the kid getting out of that? To be honest with you, so it takes away all the power from the people that are trying to help your children. So I
Well,
don't
I
know.
think the parents are the failure if their children are failing too. They're doing something. They should take half of that blame too,
Correct.
because they're obviously not paying that much attention to what their
Right.
kids are doing. Yeah,
Right.
you go to your room and study, but they close the door and they're on, playing video games or on social media today.
Right.
So
Exactly.
okay. Now I did tell you a little something earlier about a little game we play on the show. It's called
Yes.
It's the lightning round.
the lightning round. Okay, so I got 10 questions for you.
Mhm.
They're easy questions, just 1 or 2 word answers, or short sentence because some of them can't be answered, in 1 or 2 words. So, anxiety or depression, what are you seeing more of right now?
Anxiety.
Okay, number 2, the biggest mental health myth about Gen Z.
Laziness.
Number 3, social media, mostly harmful, helpful, or it depends on the person.
Harmful.
One thing you believe parents should always miss or get wrong. What do you believe parents always miss or get wrong?
Their kids, their true kids like capabilities.
Now, just so we can clarify that before I go on with that, you mean what they're capable of doing, even though the parents don't think they can do?
N-
My
the
kid wouldn't
opposite.
do that.
That and like um a lot of parents are in denial that their kid is like not able to keep up or
Right.
they're not or they need extra support. Like a lot of
Okay,
parents don't want to face that music, so
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense too. Okay, 5, is today's stress more intense or just more constant?
more constant.
Dating, is it easier or dangerous today?
Can I change it to difficult?
Yeah, difficult is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't say it's really that dangerous. I mean, it can be, but like difficult, I would say is definitely more prevalent. Yeah.
One best friend or a few best friends?
I think it depends on the person.
Okay,
Yeah.
easy way up. What,
I mean,
what,
I have a few best friends, but I know
uh,
some, but like one best friend can do it is perfectly awesome for people.
Dr.
So
Davis says that all the time. That's why I pick on him
yeah,
for that too. Who do you trust more, your parents or your best friend?
my parents.
One word that best describes what young people are feeling right now.
One word that describes how they're feeling right now. Um, I want to give more than one word answer because like I feel
Okay.
like one benefit. I think the one thing I do love about my generation, there is so much going on, but like we cope with it through humor. Like there's so many like memes on the internet like about what's going on. And yeah, like is it like the best way to cope? But like no, but it's like really funny and it brings us all together. And like especially if you're old enough to like understand what's going on in the world, like it the memes are like really funny and like I think it's a really good way. So I feel like we're very we're very perseverant. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we find different ways to like adapt and cope to things. So
I'm glad because the only other word I could hope that you would come up with is hopeful.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would say a lot of us are, and I think we want to keep pushing for better. And I think
mhm.
once I think things have to change a little bit, but I think that's just going to take time. So
And the last one, take the easy way out or bear down and do the hard work to get what you want.
bear it down, do the hard work, get what you want.
Yeah.
Because once if you take the
Just
easy way out, they're going to challenge you with they're going to ask you about it later, and you're not going to know what to do. So
say I knew you were going to answer that from the answers that we had asked a little bit earlier. But as far as humor is concerned, I mean, I use social media to keep in touch with family and friends.
right.
You know, being in Florida, you know, most of my friends are in New York or Pennsylvania, so it's good to keep in touch with them. But all my friends will tell you the same thing. Every day, 5 or 6 memes. Okay,
Yep.
it's just, you know what? I have people that actually send me PMs and stuff say thank you because I woke up this morning, I was really feeling stressed out about something, and then I read 2 or 3 of your jokes and I started laughing.
No,
Okay,
yeah.
and that set the whole day, you know?
We always say that sending each other memes is like a love language. Like it's a way to like it's a fun way to keep in touch without like really like if you're really busy but like you're reading like something that someone sent you, like that's hysterical. So
Yeah. I mean, I still have a few friends that are not on social media. I text them
yeah,
the memes.
right,
You know, they
exactly.
get 1 or 2 texts every day from it, you know, and they laugh. Um, What gives you hope right now, even on hard days?
What gives me hope is that well, I actually there's a lot of things that I saw on social media that like a lot of species are actually getting rehabilitated and are no longer extinct. And there are other countries in the world that are working towards progress and change in a positive way. And that gives me hope because like just because America is in a weird state right now doesn't mean that the rest of the world is. And yeah, and you know, we do like to think we are the center of the world, but but you know, there are other countries out there with millions of people that are, you know, try to do the right thing and like, you know, that to me gives me hope. And the fact that like I am very grateful for what I have and like just because the state of the world is, you know, questionable doesn't mean like I'm not doing okay, you know. And
Mhm.
my little world is doing okay. So that gives me hope.
I'm going to ask one final question because we've been going for about an hour, which is
I
amazing,
know.
whether you realize that or not. I watched the clock that's over there too. So, as the last question, what do you want people listening today to remember about Gen Z?
That we are just doing our best with what's in front of us and how we were raised and to give us a chance because I feel like a lot of people I feel like I get very under I mean I do like we said earlier I do look younger than I am but I feel like I get very underestimated and people are like shocked that like I know what to do at my job so to me like I mean I'm sure that's a universal thing but and that's always been the thing but definitely give us a little more give us a little more grace and we're gonna figure it out so
Yeah, I think we always look, or at least, you know, the older generations for a scapegoat.
yeah
And, you know, I've said even on this show before, when I go shopping, like forget about Walmart, but I go to a place like Publix down here,
sure
and you know the people that are working in there, 18, 19, 20 years old, they're amazing people.
yeah
I don't want to call them kids because then I'm really showing how old I am. Okay, they're amazing people. I mean, they really are. They can talk to you, very pleasant. They go out of the way. They work hard for you. You know, maybe because they see the oxygen. That's the only thing I can think of. You know, do you want to help carry that out to the car?
Right.
like it's one bag of milk. Okay. I need help carrying that out. I'm in trouble. Okay.
Yeah.
But but they're always going that extra yard. And to me, that gives me that word hope that I talked about before,
Yeah.
that, social media has painted such a picture of Gen Z.
Yeah.
And Gen Z, my feeling is they're fighting so hard to get away from that stereotype,
Yeah.
that we've stereotyped them. And I believe that's what's causing a lot of the anxiety that's taking place. And of course, as adults, like you said, most of the people care about the almighty dollar. They want to
Right.
make a profit.
Right.
Okay. And they don't care about what they're doing to the people and to the planet
Right.
that we're living on right now. And to everyone that does listen out here that's not Gen Z, we need to constantly pay attention, because, like you said, we only have like 20 years left to live. But
Right.
that 20 years, that puts you in your 40s, which is like the prime time of your life there.
Right.
And, you know, don't want, you know, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So we have to make sure that at least what's there for tomorrow is acceptable and
Right.
helpful to people. So
Right.
Heather, I know I asked you a lot of questions here today, and I apologize for that, but I also
No,
thank
no
you for your
worries.
willingness and your honesty. I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that your message can reach and help others.
I hope so too.
And yeah, because, and if we can, I will talk to you about having you on in the future, because I think a lot of the topics that we talk about, you know, Dr. Davis is in, I think, his late 40s. I'm 67. I don't want to admit that. Okay. But I think we leave out the third equation of that sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the Gen Z, the younger generation. We covered two generations, but we really need to cover three and things. So I will invite you back on later again in the future,
Of
for
course.
some shows. I'll
Sounds
talk to you
great.
about it and stuff. And, as we always say to everybody, remember that your life matters. And God bless you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, that was a great interview with Heather Dreyer, who shared with us a great deal of insight on Gen Zers. I really never thought about how handling all of this until I saw Charlie Kirk's assassination. When I saw him killed in front of all those students, affected me immediately. But then, as I said to her, I started to realize that, he was taken out in front of Gen Zs and in front of everybody that was there. So, it starts to get to the point where I could see that added so much more stress to Gen Z, saying, well, wait a minute, if I speak up about this, am I next?
Mhm.
It's sadly, it's not the America or the world we should be programming our kids to be used to and accept, yet it's happening all over the place. So I want to ask you four final quick questions.
All right.
If we could change one thing about how we approach mental health for young people in this country, what would it be?
I would make a shift from a crisis response, so a post-crisis response to a pre-crisis response, looking at prevention and early support, or early intervention. A lot of times we wait until young people are in serious trouble or dire straits before we're even willing to do anything. So that would be what I would suggest, is we really need to focus more on a prevention model to keep people from getting to that crisis point.
Well, a lot of that goes back again to communication, like we talked about before. And, I don't want to go back to Charlie Kirk, but now it's in my friggin' head. But, kids are seeing the same thing which we talked about earlier with parents. If,
Yeah.
don't like something, we're not going to listen. And that's almost what happened with Tim. Just talking about it, look what happened when he started to talk about things.
Yeah.
And I think that's setting a bad precedent for these kids. So what actually helps? Not talking about quick fixes, but things that truly build emotional resilience over time. What works?
So what we find is consistent relationships, predictable routines, learning how to tolerate discomfort, self-compassion. The thing is, resilience isn't really about being tough. It's about knowing that you can survive hard feelings without escaping or shutting down, and that skill's learned, not inherited. Okay.
So for parents watching their children struggle and feeling helpless, what do you want them to hear right now?
That their presence matters more than saying the perfect words. Simply being there. You don't have to fix everything. Stay calm, stay connected, and let your child know that they don't have to go through whatever it is alone, and neither do you. You know,
Right? They should always know that their parents are behind them. When no matter what they're facing in life, even if they make the wrong decision, getting a job or career-wise, to know that the parents are there to help them if they stumble and fall.
absolutely.
And I think with Heather, she didn't say it, but she had a strong set of parents behind her
Mhm.
that were always there to back her up, but she was also raised the correct way too.
Yeah.
So my final question, when someone feels like they're falling behind, they're broken or too far gone, what message do you want them to walk away with today?
That they're not broken. Overwhelmed does not equal broken. There's a difference. And so just remember that healing isn't about catching up to everybody else or erasing the past. It's really about learning how to move forward from where you're at. And here's what I can tell you as a therapist, as long as a person has a breath left in them, there's hope. It is only once a person is gone that there is no hope. So no matter how bad it is, know that good things can still happen. And there are people out there that want to help you. And sorry to make it the pun, but their life matters. Your
Mhm.
life matters.
And that's so important for people to hear the fact no matter how broken they think they are or how much they're scraping the bottom of the barrel,
Yeah,
okay, they're still here.
absolutely.
They can still get help.
Hmm.
Like you said, it's only when they're not here
Yeah.
that it's hopeless at that point because it's too late. Now, on that note, that's actually a good note. Before we go, I want to talk directly to you, the listeners, not as a host, not as a statistic, but as a human being. Now, if tonight's show's conversation hit close to home, if anxiety's been weighing on you or depression has been pulling you down, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, or just plain tired, I want you to hear this. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Let me say it again. There's nothing wrong with you. Struggling doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you're responding to a world that's moving fast, asking a lot, and not always offering enough support in return. Now, we don't have to have everything figured out because you can get to my age and I can tell you, you're still never going to have everything figured out. Okay. And I got at least 40, 50 years on the people that we're talking to today. But if you don't carry it, you don't have to carry this alone, I should say. You don't have to wait until things get worse to ask for help.
If you're in a dark place right now, reach out to a trusted person, a professional, or a crisis line. Dial 988 here in the United States. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're waiting to speak with you right now. If you're outside the United States, there are resources available where you live, and you deserve support just as much.
And if you're doing okay today, but someone you love isn't, your presence, listening, compassion can matter more than you actually realize.
At the Your Life Matters Show podcast, we believe that conversations save lives, and we'll keep showing up to have them honestly, compassionately, and without judgment.
So remember, please like and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment because we really like to hear from you. And there's been a bunch of people that have already come forward that want to be a guest on our podcast. There's a form on our website that you can fill out, basically asking you who you are and why you would be a good guest and your story. Or
Yeah.
if your knowledge could assist others in their mental health journey. Just visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com. In fact, we're going to have a couple of stories in about a month coming up from some people that are there. So, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And please remember, your life matters. As always, God bless you. And we hope to see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Please be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode with your hosts, Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Please remember to subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so, and hit the like button and leave a comment. Your help with this helps us reach a wider audience that may need our help.